and salutations, friends, and welcome back to the TeamIslas podcast, episode 13. My name is Doug Bush, and today I'm joined by
Patricia Islas
and
Zach Shear.
And this is the podcast for anyone looking to better themselves in percussion education. It's time! One of your favorite weeks of the year, Drumline Camp. Let's jump right into the deep end and talk about what you can do to get maximum value out of your camp for you and your students. Mr. Shear.
Awesome, Mr. Bush. I don't know if I can follow that intro. So you said, what can we do to get maximum value out of the camp? And I think your preparation before the camp is key. So we talked about in a previous episode, schedule and all of that stuff, but now we're like on the ground, nuts and bolts, the camp is about to start. What are the very practical things we need to have set up? Mm-hmm. And I think utilizing your student leadership is very important here. So I'm going to look at just some basic things like, number one, where are we rehearsing? Do we know, do the basses have a room? Like, okay, they're in the janitor's closet down the hall or whatever, whatever it is, but do we have a spot for everybody in that room? Do we have a metronome? Do we have a speaker for that metronome? Do we have batteries? So I know I can think back to my very first year of teaching where before the Drumline camp, I think I was up there for 3 days and full nights, doing literally every one of these things by myself, right? Mm-hmm. I'm wheeling out. I think no joke, I actually set up the instruments for the students in the rooms before. And you should not do that. You should utilize your student leadership and give them some responsibility. But you as the director, you should make sure that when that tech or when whoever's going to be teaching these kids, whether it's full ensemble or subs or whatever, that everyone knows where to go, when to go there, and that we all have the correct tools when we get in that room, because this time is precious. So we don't want to come into the room and have to move chairs and tables, and now we got to go find the metronome. Mr. Shear's got to run to CVS because we're out of batteries. No, let's take care of those things in advance.
Absolutely. And a lot of the student leadership led stuff harkens back to something that Ms. Islas talked about in one of the previous podcasts about how you need to create an environment where you are doing the things only you can do, and then you're allowing these other people to do things. Yes, you could go set up the drums, right? But also the student leaders can do that. And what we've discovered, here's a really good example of how we utilize this at the Coppell camp. Mr. Wynn, the director of percussion at Coppell, makes sure prior to the camp, every section has a student that is assigned the responsibility of the metronome and the speaker. So as a staff member, when we walk in to teach, the met's already set up, the speaker's already set up, it's good to go. And it takes a little bit on the front end to establish and learn these procedures, and you should dedicate time to that early in your career. But it's happened now for so many years. The student leadership, they pass it down to the previous generation, right? So as someone graduates, as someone, maybe as a sophomore, they were in charge of the Met, now they're a junior. You say, hey, Emily, will you show Trinae where this is and how to set it up? And then once Trinae, will you show Varun, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it's something that carries through the season too. It's not something that you have to manage constantly. Now you have people who manage that. And you're doing a service to the students. Being a leader is not just a title or an award that you get to put on your, college resume. I mean, that's great. They all want that, but really they need to build leadership skills, and you only build leadership skills if they're given that responsibility to try and test out. And they're going to make mistakes sometimes. They're going to do some stuff wrong, and that's your responsibility to give them some grace. But empowering them to do things that they should be able to do is going to help you in the long run get a lot more done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so before camp starts, before the first day of camp, we need to have a staff meeting. Right. And this is something that if the staff is relatively fresh or new or someone you haven't worked with, you probably want to give yourself at least half an hour. That's kind of the importance because we're setting the tone for the entire week. Right. With a little bit more experience, for example, something we have at Coppell, we can meet 15 minutes prior, but it's a lot of people that have been working together for years and already understand the expectation. Mr. Shear, what are some of the things that we're trying to address or take care of in this staff meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first of all, if you are the person who is, for lack of a better term, quote unquote in charge, especially if you have a staff that you have not worked with for a long time, and especially if you're a younger teacher, please don't hesitate to be in charge. I think it's actually helpful for people you hire for you to be like, hey, here are some basic do's and don'ts here at my school. This is the way we do this. We don't do this. Here's why, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's number one, is don't hesitate to be in charge. Number two, you need to have a very clear schedule for the week. We talked about this previously. Mr. Bush, I think you mentioned that at Capel, Mr. Wynn does a great job of actually having that schedule on your binder when you walk in ready to go. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. When you show up, Mr. Wynn has a binder with your name on it for every staff member. And then on the front cover of that binder is literally the schedule with the date and times for the entire week, which is an incredibly helpful service, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also going to make sure in that staff meeting that everyone understands. I would want to be sure there's just no ambiguity about what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. So that is all the way down to like exact exercises we're going to play, exact tempos we're going to play them, if and when we're going to get together. I want to make sure people know this is when you pack up, this is when you move, this is when we come together. Mr. Bush, I think I remember teaching a camp with you one time, and I was like, okay, we're going to get together at 3. And you may have been asking this question actually as a hint for clarification for someone else in the room, but you were like, Mr. Shearer, do you mean that the downbeat of the ensemble block is at 3, or do you mean we should start moving at 3? And I think I was like, thank you, Mr. Bush. I mean the downbeat is at 3.
Yeah, which, by the way, on a side note, that is our recommended method, because in our experience, if you say, okay, hey, let's start ensemble, we'll start at 3. Mr. Bush gets there with the basses at 3. And then everyone's just standing around, and about 10 minutes later, the quads mosey in. And now
half an hour later, the snares.
Half an hour later, because they couldn't. Mr. Bush, we were doing triplet grid backwards off left, and we just couldn't. And it's like, hey, all these individuals with their subsections or whatever, they got the best intentions in the world, but it's at the detriment of the entire rest of the program, just wasting time. So it's like, by just defining, okay, hey, we're getting together at 3. You allow every individual tech to make the decision that's correct for their group and where they're located in the school and all those other things. It just is a more efficient use of your time.
Absolutely. And also, like, okay, if we're getting together at 3, I want, assuming we're in subs, I want every instructor and the students also to know when we get together at 3, here's why we're getting together. We're going to play, this list of exercises at this tempo. Does that involve the front ensemble? Does it not? That way everyone is held accountable, and everyone just has a clear plan of what to do and no time is wasted.
Yeah, because sometimes what that translates to me, like, let's say I'm working with the snares and, okay, the whole battery's going to get together and we're going to play these 3 exercises and this chunk of the music. I know exactly the music that I need to work on. And then I also get to evaluate, are these 3 exercises, they're the type of, like, for example, if one of them's 8 on a hand, that I might not actually even do 8s with the snare son, right? I might do, a triplet timing exercise or whatever, something like that. Because I know that they're strong enough that I'm okay if their only rep of 8s during the day is in this final block. However, if I'm with the bass line and we're going to be working on our splits, our 1s, our 2s, our 3s, 4, I'm probably going to structure that in and then see, okay, now how do they perform in a full ensemble environment? But it's a lot better than just showing up and being like, oh, hey, what do you guys want to play? You want to play this one? Jigga, or whatever.
It can be really useful in a front ensemble setting too, because, we'll probably talk about this later, but we tend to move a little bit slower. There's more moving parts. There's more details to kind of iron out when we're in the music learning process. So we might not, as a group in subs, get to the point where we can play at exactly the tempo that the battery is going the day that we're going to meet with the battery for the first time. But I will make it really clear that morning, hey, this is the plan, guys. We're going to play this tempo. We're going to play this much music. And if we have a little bit of a longer lunch break, then that gives them more motivation to come in and want to practice through those parts, because they don't want to seem like the weakest section, or they don't want to fall apart in front of the entire group the first time we get together. So it gives them more ownership over that music, and you're going to see them practicing more.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the other thing that needs to come up in that staff meeting is, again, if I'm the guy that's in charge, if I'm the percussion director, I want to clearly communicate to the staff the goals for the week. And if these are people I work with regularly and I've worked with for years, and they were involved in crafting those goals. But like everything we just discussed, are we getting together? What exercises are we doing? What tempo, et cetera, et cetera? Those should all serve the clear goals that have been set out for the week. And you mentioned student leadership earlier. That should involve I would argue that those goals you've set should involve the student leadership, again, prior to camp. And like you said, Miss Islas, with the front ensemble especially, like in the absence of clear goals or a clear plan, these days of camp can get real long and real monotonous real quick. And then you get to a point where we're just kind of spinning our wheels. But if we all have a clear goal and the staff knows it, the kids know it, I think it goes a long way towards keeping everybody moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I couldn't agree more. And I couldn't, in terms of the students' awareness of the goals, I think it is important to go all the way to the micro level. This might be one of the most consistent things when Miss Islas and I go clinic groups. We'll get in front of groups of completely varying skill levels. They play a basic exercise like 8 on a hand, and then we just simply ask them, what are you doing right now? Like, what is your goal? Why do you play 8 on a hand? Sometimes not a single student can answer the question. Even though it's something they literally do every day. They've probably done it every day for years, and not a single student can even attempt to articulate. You might get like a half-hearted to warm up. It's like, really? Is that it? That's the full depth of 8 on a hand is to warm up, right? And so I think it is, if the students don't have a clear picture of what it is they're trying to achieve, then how are they going to achieve it, right? And there's not a right or a wrong here. One of our current staff members is an incredible educator that marched for Pulse, a couple years that they won WGI, and he's an incredible player and incredible educator. And, he believes in the tilt, traditional grip of the tilt, right? Even though I might not agree with that, right? And he believes in these long form kind of lot exercises, even though I might not. But he can very articulately explain to me why he has these beliefs and why they're important. And he can communicate those to the kids he's teaching. And that's great. That's exactly what it should be. It doesn't matter if your goals, what they are, as much as that you have them and that they are clearly defined so the students know what they're working towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, speaking to front ensemble time being can get a little long in the tooth sometimes. I wanted to talk a little bit about some ways to keep the kids engaged.
Oh, yes.
When you're in Drumline camp mode and you have hours and hours and hours. Now, a lot of the things that we're talking about, including having these staff meetings, come from experience, right? The fact that we have lived through a bunch of different variety of these things multiple times over gives us insight to what can go wrong and what could be useful. And I started to develop this technique in my teaching that I can't say that I saw anyone else do before, but I developed it through a necessity because of maybe a lack of communication at the beginning of camps. When I was in college and just out of college and I was teaching, 4 to 6 percussion camps, band camps during a summer, there were many times that I was invited to come in and given complete trust and ownership over the front ensemble for the week. And there's various degrees of it. Like maybe there's some music that we have to learn. Maybe there's no music at all and it's just exercises. But in most cases, I wasn't given a lot of instruction on, okay, this is what the kids can do. This is kind of what their experience level is. This is what I'm wanting them to develop. It was just kind of like, okay, here's the exercise packet. Here's some beats. Go make them better. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time I'm walking into programs, which maybe I know the instructor from one experience or another, but I haven't been personally teaching lessons or doing camps here before, so I don't really know what's being taught or how they're being spoken to. So I'm left to my own devices to kind of figure these things out on the fly. So one of the techniques that I started to develop was if I jump in here and start asking the students questions, like, okay, how do we really hold them out? Where do we stand? What is a key signature? There's just these basic fundamental questions that I'm going to very quickly learn what they know and what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And shocker, none of the kids are great at describing any of these things. So it's good practice for them to have to work through, like, okay, I kind of am familiar with this concept, but she's not going to just let me hold my hand up and show her. She's going to actually make me say the words and go through the process. So that's a way that I have continued to use in every classroom setting that I'm in, even in my private lessons, of getting the kids not only to be more engaged, but more cooperative in their own education. Because, I can give them the answer, but they're being given the answer by all of their teachers all the time, and they're not memorizing these things. It's not really sinking in. But when a question of how do you do this, or why do you do this, or why do you think this is the most efficient way, and they have to really think through the process, it's going to stay with them more. I mean, there's studies that show that this is true. You having to solve the problem on your own is going to be more long-lasting benefits than someone just telling you how to do it. But that also leads to this beautiful thing of when you have 3 hours of time, all of a sudden it flies by because you're giving opportunities for everyone to communicate and to be a part of the conversation. I have students play individually and then have other students give comments, both critically, but also positive comments, like, what are you seeing this person do that looks really good or that sounds really good? Tell me about how does their posture look? Yeah, it looks better than all you fools in here. This is how you need to look. It's an opportunity to give props to students and help build individual confidence. But it also allows people to be much more aware of the process and intrinsically makes it more long-lasting and more continuous throughout their entire percussion career.
Yeah. Miss Islas, if I were going to write a book, I think I might write this book, the Islas method of teaching front ensembles. Everything you just described, and I've seen you do this, everything you just described takes a really high level of patience for the instructor.
It does.
And you have such a gift for patience as a teacher. And so I definitely, I think when we first started teaching together, I had none of that. I was like, we need to be good. We need to learn the music now, and I would watch you just be so like, it sounds easy. Oh, ask the students questions. Sure. Great. Well, after like 3 seconds of silence, a lot of teachers, and myself included, especially younger teachers, they're just going to answer the question, or they're going to go to the kid that they know knows the answer. But you are so patient. And like, if you're going to do it this way, and by the way, I think with front ensembles, magic is made over a long period of time.
It is.
Like you cannot, great front ensembles are not made overnight. They just are not. And so you just have to have patience. You have to be okay with silence. You have to be okay with, like you said, going down the line, letting kids play individually and then getting feedback. And that can be a really hard thing to do.
It can. And there's an art to the question answering, asking as well. I don't just typically ask a blanket question and wait for someone to respond or wait for the hand to come up, because usually it's the same student every time or the same couple of students. I'll be very strategic with giving questions directly to a person, which can be useful for some of those younger or less kind of bought in kids, especially that you will see in the front ensemble. Like you might have some kid on the rack that thought they were about to make center snare, had no clue what was going on, and are now playing suspended cymbal rolls because that's probably what all they're capable of. You can get them engaged in the conversation by giving them questions that they have to reach for a little bit, but that they're going to be able to answer. You don't want to give them a question that's just way above their head, because they're not going to buy into you. They're immediately going to turn you off. This is an opportunity for you to earn their respect as well. And you can do that by feeding the right question to the right students. You can give advanced questions to the kids that have been involved in a long time, and that they need to be pushed. And you can lob some easier ones off to the kids that need to build confidence and need to feel like they have a spot in this group as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt. Hey, Matt, what do you think about that? Can you summarize what Miss Islas and Mr. Scheer just said? That's another method that I like to use. We got from Mr. Lebrecht. He was the master at this, is by saying the names of the students when you're directing them, can help in this situation to kind of wake them up or keep them engaged. Again, this, in full disclosure, I don't think that this is going to be a big shocker for everybody, but it's genuinely harder for younger players nowadays, than it was, because young people have grown up with so much stimulus, right? It's just harder to focus for longer periods of time, genuinely. The positive on the other side of it, though, is their exposure, right, is so high. So they're capable of doing incredible things. I mean, I think all three of us in the room feel like we've taught young students that were significantly better players than we were even when we were in college, right? But that's one of the tricks that you can keep them engaged is by saying calling their name out individually, right? And like Ms. Islas said, you don't need to just throw out these blanket questions. You literally go to the student, Trinae, what count should the sticks come out on, right? Can you demonstrate that for the group? That type of thing. Another great thing that, we used to do at North Texas all the time, I know that Paul still does all the time, is down the line playing, right? And during these longer camps is one of the few times you are afforded the luxury time-wise to do these things. And as Ms. Islas said, it can be very powerful if you feel like you're giving the student the same comment, hey, keep your beads together, you see your beads are apart, hey, try to have your beads in the center of the head, watch your left bead. If you feel like that's happening a lot, then you go down the line and student A plays, and then you ask student B, hey, what did you notice about student A's beads? And student B is like, yeah, one was in Coppell and one was in Mexico City. And you're like, now the kid, because this is something that's very clear and obvious to a fellow student, right? It can kind of help with that type of stuff. Another, a good example also as well is if you are afforded the luxury of having a staff, you want to give them as much sub time as humanly possible. Like you want to resist the urge of always coming together and just tracking outside without a met or something. Like if you brought in a specialist to work with the quads or work with the bait or whatever, the front ensemble, give them as much time as possible. But there is an element of fatigue, especially with a younger group or program, where changing the environment can help to keep the engagement. And one of the things that we do at Coppell is our first block of the day, I think, is like a 3-hour block. The hour before lunch, the snares and quads get together and we work on rolls for 45 minutes. It's like every day the quads and snares are having to move to another room for that last hour, and then they're performing with other sections, right? And then the last 15, the bass line comes in and enjoys us. And for the last 15 minutes, Age Out Podcast has this incredible fundamentals playlist that is basically chop builders, and they're all roughly around 15 minutes long. So you put on whatever you want to work on, your triplet rolls, your paradiddles, your accent tap, and it'll start at a slower tempo. And it's, maybe like an 8-bar exercise that increases by 2 clicks up to like 200 or something. And that's always a really positive experience too, right before you send them to lunch. So again, you want to do subs as much as possible, but, read the room. And if the last 15 minutes we all pull together is going to get the kids to focus a little bit more because they're in front of other staff members or other students, then it's that's a good thing to take advantage of.
Mr. Bush, you mentioned staff members and sub time and all that. I think another good rule of thumb, especially if you're a person that does not have a staff like Coppell of a lot of people, maybe you can only get one person. I am going to make an effort to put the very best. Obviously, we're going to get the best teacher we can. I'm going to put the best teacher with the weakest section.
Absolutely.
I can't remember if I said this on a previous episode or not. If I did, forgive me. But my first year as a teacher, I was really fortunate to be able to hire one person to help me, and it was Dave Hall. And Mr. Hall, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And the bass drums really needed a lot of help that year. And I was like, basses, meet Mr. Hall, and I was like, I'm going to give you the best metronome, the best space, the best everything, so we can really make this section improve as much as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Bush, I know something that I've seen you do a lot with the bass drum specifically, but also with other sections, is like you are strategically placing yourself in the room and the students in certain ways, and using some, I don't like the word tricks, but things that are just like what I would put under the heading of like best practices for teaching. So can you talk about some of those a little bit? Like I know the stickers on the heads and stuff like that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Shear. I think a lot of it stems back to actually some values that I got from the Madison Scouts back when I marched there, and then was very fortunate to teach with a lot of those guys. Specifically I'm thinking like T.R. Fitzgibbon and Paul Weber and some of these guys, where we as a staff very much believe the students being a reflection of the teacher. And if we are going to ask them to do these things and we ourselves are not projecting or willing to do those things, we want it to feel more like we're on their side. We're not the boss mandating and coming at them, right? So I have found, like, if I'm asking the section to run back on the field and I am running back, that is more effective, right? And so this is another one of those things where, I want the baseline to know, or the snare line, or whoever I'm working with, the battery, to know Mr. Bush is fully engaged. He's not on his phone. He's not checking this. He's not doing that. He's not sitting in a chair, right? My legs work, thankfully. I hope to live long enough where they don't work as well as they do now, right? And so I'm going to use them while I got them. And I'm going to be up, and I'm going to walk around, and I am going to have the right hands in the mirror, and I'm going to turn them have their left hands in the mirror, and sometimes I'm going to stand next to bottom bass for 4 reps in a row, and then I'm going to go up to top, and I'm going to look down the silhouette from the front to see the angles of the mallets. I'll do 5 reps in a row at the back of the room just staring at their feet before I come over to third base and let her know, hey, your left foot's not leaving this. I want them. I feel that they're going to feed off of my energy, right? And if I'm coming in with a positive energy and I'm coming in with excitement and I'm engaged and I don't know. I can remember moments like at NT, for example, where we would play an exercise and we would go down the entire line, and after every individual played, Paul would then give that individual one comment. Yeah. And that really stuck with me. Like I could feel, he's getting to the baseline. Okay, he's working out the baseline. Oh, now he's right next to me as I'm playing this, mambo pattern in my right hand on the rim against a Kaskara in my left hand that he just improvised right now or whatever. Yeah. And then what's the comment he's going to tell me? And then he's like, hey man, can you play your tap softer? Or whatever. And it really, really stuck with me. And so this is the same thing. I think that, if you're just teaching from a chair, you just kind of plant yourself behind a music stand in front of Marimba 2, there's a lot you're missing out on from technique standpoint, sound, just everything.
Yeah. One thing I would mention too that I have experienced myself as a teacher and also witnessed, especially other front ensemble techs or educators kind of struggle with sometimes, is you got to, especially in the front ensemble world where we have so many kids in one room, various levels and attention spans, is you have to command the room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You really have to be in charge. You have to be the leader. And I think it's very easy to get into a habit of this is just my teaching style and this is the speed that I go and these are the things that I say, and not keep in mind that the students are a part of that collaboration. And I try to always keep an eye on the eyes of the students and the yawning that maybe is happening and the fidgeting that's happening, and use that to kind of guide the pacing of the rehearsal. Now, like you said earlier, Mr. Chair, I'm very patient.
Yes.
And I will move very slowly, very intentionally, especially at our first full camp, in which this might be the only time of the year I have the opportunity to move this slow. Yeah. But I would rather build the standard from the ground up and then be able to move from that foundation than have to feel like I'm constantly fixing problems that have arisen because we moved too quickly. Right?
Absolutely.
But that requires the students to be willing to go there with me. And I have to be mindful. I mean, our students at Coppell are excellent, and I would like to believe they really trust me and trust in the process, so they will go there with me to a certain extent. Sure. Right? Sure. And so I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping an eye on them and see how much progress we're making throughout that time, going very slowly. And once I start to notice that they're losing that focus, that's either time for a break, or we're going to play a different exercise and move a little faster, or go through a different level of challenges or whatever. But I'm going to guide that off of what I'm seeing from their feedback.
What I hear you saying is there's an inverse relationship between speed and how much detail is going on, right? Like, like you're not just going slow because you're like, by golly, kids these days, we're going to slow it down. You're saying, and again, I've seen you do this, we are going really slow because the level of detail is so high.
Right.
But you're also saying like, hey, there might be some times where I give a little bit the other way.
Absolutely.
Like maybe we do need to move a little faster, and you're going to be realistic about that level of detail, maybe coming down a little bit, you know?
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
I get a very practical example here is like, I know we've all judged, we've all taught students, our vibraphone friends in the back row, you know, who like, you know, you talk about a wide range of abilities and types of students and stuff. Okay. Meet the vibes sometimes, you know? And I've judged, and I know I've taught groups where it's like, hey, did you guys know there's a pedal? And it's just, you can find out so many interesting things from walking back there and just watching, what are we doing with the pedal?
Yes.
Oh my, we got one student that his doesn't work, right? And then we got one over here that pedals everything. And then we got, you know, and I remember, a camp at Coppell where it was like, okay, by golly, we are going to get this pedaling right. I found out, and so we made a big deal of it. We got it right. Okay, great. I found out years later that one of those students had like gotten so into it. Lauren Dean, if you're listening, she made a pedal. I think if I remember this correctly, there was like a pedal cam that I realized had been filmed years later, and I believe was on YouTube at some point.
I love it.
But it was like, okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Like, yes, okay, you got to really slow down to do that.
And to reiterate that, because as arrangers, sometimes Miss Islas will even be asked, like, will you put the pedaling in the music? And this happened with me, where it's like, will you put every sticking for the bass or whatever? Yeah. That does not solve the problem.
Yeah.
Miss Islas can put every pedaling in there, but someone has to hold them accountable to that. Like I can remember a group the instructor was very insistent. Doug, I want every detail exactly as if it was the Coppell bass line, like every sticking everywhere. And it's like, yeah, of course, no problem. And then I come out to clinic the group, and unironically, you know, I'm working with the basses, and 40% of it's changed. And the teacher's not there. I asked the bass kid, like, what happened? They're like, oh, well, yeah, this guy came out to work with us, and he said this was all wrong, and he fixed it. And I was just like, yeah, okay, cool. Okay. So again, that's one of those things, like there's no quick fix here, right? You know, I mean, Rule 12 in the book Master Hands is drumming is about attention to detail. Yeah. And that attention to detail requires you to have patience, and it requires repetition. Like, you have to address it. Just because you told them the stick should be in the center of the head once does not mean, or that they shouldn't play on the notes, it does not mean it's going to happen. This camp is one of those few opportunities where you can really grind these things home through many different methods, and hopefully the students leave again with that clear understanding of what it is they're trying to accomplish.
Now, Mr. Bush, you mentioned changing the music during the camp, you know, and in our line of work here, you know, we've all been in groups where we've taught groups where it's like, it seems like we went through entire rehearsals and all we did was deal with changes, you know, or like you said, you come into a group in like October or something, and it's like the music I'm looking at has no relationship to what I'm hearing. It's like so much has been changed. So that, you know, in general, I'll just say, and I think I learned this a lot from you guys, like, we should all be more hesitant to change things, number one. But number two, I think you would agree, especially during early season, like camp number one, I would challenge you, anybody who's listening, just commit to like, I'm not going to change one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change one thing. But I really think it's fine. In September 1st, you can change it. But like we've talked about, this camp, there's so many things that you can only do at your summer camp, whenever that is. Yeah. And that time is so precious. Don't waste it putting in a whole bunch of changes that may or may not stick.
Yep, there's a time and a place, and the kids can only process so much. And these beats were not written to go 120 or 130 or 140. They were written to go 172. And you're not hearing the band. You don't know how this thing goes or doesn't go with the band, and all these things, right? So yeah, I do very much believe. You know, I had a great conversation with Frank at Cooper's Cove about this yesterday, who we write the beats for. Of like, once they are in his hands, they're his. You know, once the beats leave our inbox and they're in your folder, you know, we shared them with you. They're your, and yes, you 100% should modify them as necessary to fit your needs in your group. Absolutely. This isn't like Mr. Bush's self-worth isn't destroyed if you take out that 5-foot single and, you know, measure 45. No, please, if that's what you need to do. But as Mr. Shear's saying, there's a time and a place. I don't think that the camp is the time and place to do it, right?
No.
This is the time to really ingrain procedures and fundamentals and quality and consistency. And then once it's actually at tempo and you've lived with it for about a week, then, of the actual season, now it's time to make, strategic minimal changes.
Strategic and minimal. Yes. Yeah, no doubt.
All right, guys. With that, I'd like to take a moment and thank you for hanging out with us today. If you have any questions for the podcast, send them to teamislas@gmail.com. That's TeamIslas, TeamIslas@gmail.com. Shout out to all the great percussion companies that support Team Islas: Mapex Majestic Percussion, Remo Drumheads, Promark Sticks and Mallets, Sabian Cymbals, Beetle Percussion, and Lot Ride Apparel. Mr. Shear, in order to play all this advanced drumline music, you need to have a rock-solid foundation, and that starts with your beginners. What book would you recommend starting your beginners with?
Player's Guide for the Beginning Percussionist.
Ooh, Miss Islas, where can they get a copy? Our listeners get a copy of this very own Player's Guide for the Beginning Percussionist.
Well, they can go to the internet and they can find their favorite music source.
Steve Wise,
Yeah,
Dallas
Steve Wise,
Percussion.
Tell us more about
Bell's
these music sources.
Yeah, anywhere you can buy music, essentially, you should be able to find a copy. Hey, listen, if you can run a successful drumline camp that leaves the students wanting to practice all summer and the principal wanting to give you a raise, then don't forget to like and subscribe. Please give us that 5-star review. Remember, friends, step 1 is time, step 2 is sound, and step 3 is subscribing to the Team Islas podcast.